This is Steve Burleigh from Studio Burleigh, and I'm here with one of the Liberty Bells, Catherine. And we're here to talk about updates on what's going on in London, England, with respect to cultural issues and social issues. Catherine, there was an issue you mentioned to me just before we went live that's very much on your mind. Can you describe it for us?
Hello, everyone. Sorry that you are stuck with me at the moment. Hopefully some other ladies will be joining shortly. So if you are in the UK, you may have seen some headlines about the Advertising Standards Authority Agency. They're called the ASA, and they are the regulator for kind of what is and is not acceptable content for advertising in the UK. And there've been quite a lot of headlines. They have released some new guidelines that will essentially give them the power to crack down on so-called gender stereotyping, or things that are sexist, or things that are to do with body image. And I think what is interesting about this, actually, I noticed a similarity to what we were talking about the other week with what happened with the Gomeshi case, which is obviously way over in Canada and a completely different thing. But effectively, these women who had lied and who had colluded accused Gomeshi of sexual assault. He didn't even have to take the stand because their evidence just had so many holes in it. It was just busted apart, and he was acquitted. And what happened in Canada was they're basically changing the guidelines and changing the law so that Gomeshi would have to be found guilty. That was the upshot of it. And
Just if I could interject there, that's Bill C-51, which is in legislation right now. And the Bill C-51 prevents a defendant from using social media from the accuser to prove his innocence, which is what happened with Gomeshi.
Well, so that's just the parallel that I saw with what I'm talking about now is from, I don't know if it was last year or the year before, there was an advert in the UK for a company that makes protein shakes for, like, you know, exercise and weight loss, called Protein World. And the advert was a very sexy lady in a bikini, and the strapline was, "Are you beach body ready?" And this caused an absolute outcry. The feminists went crazy because obviously everyone's body is beach body ready, because you just have to take your body to the beach and blah, blah, blah. And that many people complained to the Advertising Standards Authority about that, but it didn't actually contravene their guidelines in terms of the beach body ready thing. I think it actually did, somehow it was deemed false advertising because the actual protein shakes themselves didn't make you lose weight or something. So somehow it was deemed to be like a misleading advert, but not for the body image issue, for a different issue. But what's interesting, they've issued a lengthy report, this investigation that the ASA have looked into sort of evidence and so-called research, and they've supposedly done all this research. But they actually mention at the beginning of this report, they mention the Protein World advert, and the way they phrase it is, "Oh yes, we've realized that we need to, you know, be better equipped to deal with these kinds of complaints in future." What they're really doing is changing the rules so that adverts like that can, you know, I don't think that they don't have the right to remove adverts. It's not a legal thing, but if they find that your advert was inappropriate, it does kind of count as a black mark against you.
Are you saying that these rules are being changed as a direct result of that particular ad campaign?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think this was a long time coming because there has been in recent years so much activism, and they do talk about this. They talk about how in the UK there have been all these moves towards gender equality. So it's a part of that, and this advert probably was the catalyst for that. But it's just, and again, it's part of this, and effectively what these guidelines are doing, they're stuffed full of feminist ideology, and it's part of this, you know, slow march through the institutions of, you know, of this ideology, and the ASA is the latest. It's just the latest area.
I like your imagery of the slow march there, because this is happening globally, folks. The feminist ideology is being encoded into law in countries in different ways all around the world. So what you see happening in Canada and what you see happening in Britain, in Australia, this is coming to your country as well. And this is not, this is
already has.
the beginning.
It probably already has come to your country. And interestingly, looking at this document that they've released, what they're able to talk about is how, oh, actually, we looked at the government's legislation in line with gender equality, and oh, all of this ideology is already there. So how convenient, we're just falling into line with what's already in the legislation and the government policy. And they also have a section looking at what's going on in other European countries. They have a section about the EU, which, oh, I've made some notes about. Let me just find the page where they talk about.
Sounds like quite a detailed document with all these changes.
Where is it? Yes. So, one sec. Oh, sorry, everybody. Yeah, so the EU is very famous for, well, they actually have, I talk about this on my blog, Female Fed Up with Feminism. They have some draft legislation that would severely interfere with what any of the media can say or do in terms of all these kind of promoting all these intersectional ideologies. So what do they say? A 2009 report by the European Commission considered that the media, including the advertising industry, should be encouraged to transmit non-stereotyped images and content, in particular of women in decision-making positions. In 2012, an EU Parliament...
I'm not sure what that means, including women in decision-making positions.
So what they're saying is the advertising industry should be encouraged. So they're saying that we should actively push a certain type of content in adverts. And they're saying they want non-stereotyped images and content, in particular of women in decision-making positions. So what they're saying is, see, this is what gets me about these people. When it suits them, they want the media to represent the world as it is. When it suits them, they want the media to represent the world as it should be, or as they think it should be. So here, effectively, the EU is saying, we have an agenda, we want more women in decision-making positions. We have to encourage the advertising industry to promote that. So this is an actual open, stated. Well, it's some people.
So that's you putting that out as a suggestion, not as a rule that if you break it, you'll be penalized somehow.
Well, so this report by the ASA, they're just quoting something that the EU has said, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But they're using all of this to justify the decisions that they have made, and a lot of what they talk about, effectively, just to try and summarize, because there's a lot of talk in what they've actually released. They're concentrating on images or representations that could be either harmful or potentially harmful.
Well, that covers just about everything, doesn't it?
Well, it's not just but harmful or potentially harmful in whose estimation?
Yeah, it always comes back to that, and I think that was Christopher Hitchens' main point about hate speech. Who will be the judge of these things?
Of course. So they use that as a definition all the way through, and then they have consulted with stakeholders, and they have a section where they talk about people who disagreed with them, and they said, well, some of the people who were arguing on the other side were, they were sort of, it was about free speech and freedom of expression, but one of the things they put in inverted commas and they highlighted, they said most of them concentrated on the right to offend. I strongly doubt that is actually what most of these people were concentrating on. I suspect they have highlighted this because it makes people who disagree with them sound bad. That is my suspicion. And particularly they do go on to say in the report that this isn't actually about offending people. This isn't about what is and is not offensive. This is about stereotypes that can push people in directions that are harmful or potentially harmful. So it's kind of a flaw in their logic. And now my favorite section of the report. Let me find it. Where is it? This is, yes. So they say that they spoke to some men's rights activist groups. They put men's rights activists in inverted commas.
How are they referring? Like they're calling rights activist groups dangerous by default?
Oh no! So I'll just read what they've written. So they firstly the way they're saying men's rights activists, but they're putting it in inverted commas. So they're showing their distaste
right.
for this. And they're saying it's difficult to find reports that argue in favor of gender stereotypes or inequalities. Some organizations representing men's rights activists argue that women benefit disproportionately from greater equality and that men suffer emotionally and financially as a consequence. So they've done a non sequitur. The paragraph begins, it's difficult to find reports that argue in favor of gender stereotypes and inequalities. And then they start talking about men's rights activists as if they are arguing as if they are promoting inequality, which
right.
Even
and a lot of people will miss the fact that it doesn't follow, and that's why people use non sequiturs, because they're trying to dupe people, right?
Of course, they're trying to dupe people, and then they say some of the examples given by these organizations, such as a dearth of men in caring professions, particularly teaching, and rising rates of male depression and suicide, reflect and support arguments for gender stereotypes that equate certain careers with a specific gender, or imply that it's more acceptable for women to express emotion than men. So they're saying these are the things that we will allow the men's rights activists to maybe have a point on. But then they go on to say other examples given by these organizations, such as assertions that the gender pay gap has been closed, or that women are now overrepresented in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, or STEM fields, education and careers, are not supported by the evidence. So what they're doing there is they're saying these people are wrong about the wage gap, which is, again, it's disingenuous because they're comparing median wages and...
Oh yeah, most intelligent people know the wage gap is bullshit. But the fact that they're coding this into the rules there is disturbing.
Well, I mean, these aren't the rules. This is like the report showing how they consulted. This is the section of the report who they consulted and how they consulted them. And then they're saying that the men's rights claim that women are overrepresented in STEM is false. And the reason they're able to say that is...
said that. Has anybody said women are overrepresented in STEM?
Well, the reason they can say that is because if you do STEM with one M, if the M is for mathematics, men are overrepresented. If you add the second M, which stands for medicine and veterinary medicine, then actually women do outnumber men.
I didn't know that.
Yes, and the reason for that is actually things like physics and maths are actually very small. There's a small people studying them. If actually people studying medical sciences, it's a much larger number of people, and of that.
Good point. Even biology, I remember when I was at university, the biologists seemed to be dominated by women.
Yeah, women are more likely
to almost all women.
Sciences. So what they've very cleverly done in the report is to exclude the second M there, and make the men's rights active. And they specifically said this is not supported by the evidence. So they've done it.
They've been very careful in their deception in this report, haven't they?
I don't know who they've actually hired to write this report, but I can tell you that they've hired somebody who is a
feminist. Feminist group, yeah.
I can tell just from the content of it. And then there's also a section where they talk about the nature-nurture debate, and they very, very cleverly say, yes, most people do believe that it's a mixture of the two, but what they do, the people that they actually name and the people that they cite, one of them is Cordelia Fine, who has this, her what's her book called, Delusions of Gender. She's very, very ideological. They don't, for example, talk about Steven Pinker, or anybody in in that category. And then what do? They there's another quote I'd just like to read out. Where is it? It was talking about how because these stereotypes may be harmful. Oh, where is it? Sorry, everybody. They were saying basically we don't, the nature nurture debate is not resolved, but because these stereotypes could potentially be harmful, that justifies us kind of interfering.
I'm not sure what they mean that the nature nurture debate, what that debate is in general terms, and how it is not resolved. I think I've been hearing, we've been talking nature nurture for probably 100 years. And as soon as genetics came into the play, they started talking about the debate between where is the dividing line between nature and nurture. So I don't think there's going to be ever a day when, in general, nature nurture debate will ever be resolved.
Oh, of course not. So yeah, I've just found what they've said here. It's very Weaselish. They've said, you know, the nature nurture debate is highly contested and unanswered, etc. And then they've said, if stereotypes can have harmful effects, an argument that stereotypes are derived from entirely or partly innate factors does not seem to be a strong enough justification for ignoring this harm. So again, they're saying, well, we've decided that, or if whoever has decided that pushing people in this and this direction is harmful, it doesn't matter if it's natural or not. It doesn't matter if little girls want to be ballerinas and little boys want to be trucks.
Coming back to the Beachbody ad, which, you know, that the body they describe in the Beachbody ad has nothing to do with a stereotype. That is an elite body. And they put that up there specifically to make the inference that their product will give you this body. That is standard advertising technique. It's not drawing on a stereotype. It's, like those kind of women or men that they portray in those ads are not normal women or men. If you want to see some serious ads, take a look at the protein ads designed for men.
Yeah, I mean,
actually, all Arnold Schwarzeneggers out there.
Actually, one thing they can't ignore is they do talk about men. They do say that it is more. This will apply to men as well. And I think,
well, you know, we know how that plays out in the application of these kinds of rules and laws. We can pretty much take that as one just blanket lie. Applies to both sexes. My ass, it does.
I think if people do complain about the ads, they probably will have to apply the same standards.
Not very vigorously. I'll be extremely surprised if anything is ever equal in a feminist-generated rule or law.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing that's very annoying about this is it's about humor. And then they've got a section where they've spoken to sort of stakeholders and activists and whatever, and somebody whose name I won't mention because I did know her briefly, has talked about how just because something's funny doesn't mean it's not harmful. And it seems like they've kind of taken that on board. So actually one of the main distinctions that they're making is they've said that, so for example, if showing a woman making dinner or cleaning her house, that wouldn't be against the rules, but showing a scenario where she was expected to do that, where so her family made a mess and she was the one that kind of had to clean it up, that would break the rules. And sort of, you know, a situation that could be funny, like that is a situation where you could kind of make a joke out of that, but that is going to be a joke that you're not allowed to make.
What disturbed me most about this is the fact that this impetus towards social engineering is spreading into everything from law to education to even the rules that advertisers need to follow have to be producing some kind of social engineering effect.
Yeah, it's really, really sad.
There was a question here on the thing here. Does these ads also apply to online advertising? Because obviously you can't keep online ads, stop them at your border, right?
I think I would imagine that it's anything that's kind of in the UK, sort of UK based. So I think if it were associated with a brand, so say if a brand, I don't know, if like Heinz tomato ketchup or something had an advert that was popping up on your YouTube video, I would imagine that would.
How would they know? I mean, maybe the ad is based out of Heinz ketchup, India or something. I don't know.
I mean, again, I'm not an expert over where this would apply. I mean, I think again, this would apply to large companies that have ad campaigns that would go out across multiple media.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure where you would go to complain about something that's on the internet. I'm not exactly sure where you would trace its origin.
It's an insane attempt anyways, because, you know, at the end of the day, you're not going to be able to stop ads at any border. Maybe China, maybe, I don't know, some other highly controlled, tightly monitored countries, maybe Saudi Arabia, they could control their entire internet structures to block out anything untoward to their culture. But I mean, this is a fool's errand, actually, to try and the social engineering thing, because one thing first thing they want to do is when you're told you just can't think like that, they just can't stop thinking like that anymore. You know, it's the same old trick. If you tell somebody, don't think of a pink elephant, everybody who hears it's going to think of a pink elephant.
Yeah, I'm just scrolling through this, and there's just every page has the most appalling stuff on it, and I just don't even know where to even start. It's just a car crash. It's just a mess. It's like reading a modern intersectional feminist textbook. That's basically what this whole report sounds like, and it's just it's not surprising. It's very disappointing. Yeah.
Maybe you can update us on this again when you understand more of the details of it. Is this now like in place, or is this a
2018? They've said, I think so, somewhere around 2018.
Okay.
I mean, there has been a bit of it. People sort of have been writing a lot of opinion pieces, sort of effectively saying that this is a bit of a joke. And
to revisit the Ghomeshi thing, if anybody hasn't read it, have a look at Barbara Kay's analysis or commentary of the effect of Bill C-51 in Canada that came about as a result of Ghomeshi's innocence proven by social media. So Barbara Kay at the National wrote an excellent commentary on the dangers of this legislation. Sorry to interrupt you there, Catherine.
No, yeah, I mean, I guess it's not a perfect analogy with the Ghomeshi thing, but I think the link is that these people, they're spotting cracks in the system where people can get around effectively what they want and where things are happening not on their terms, and they're just making sure to kind of plug the holes in those gaps. I guess something not in the UK, but something interesting that is kind of the opposite of that is they're trying to get rid of this Title IX. They're trying to rescind the Obama's dear colleague letter and try and make the whole thing a bit fairer and get rid of the kangaroo courts. So I guess I don't know. That's just an example of where something like this is being rolled back. And I do think that these ideologies and these however they're being written into guidelines, legislation, policy, whatever, the day will come when people will have to get rid of it because it doesn't work and it is rubbish and it is nonsense and it's not sustainable. And I guess it's how long is this going to last, and
how much pain is going to be involved. Like, I don't see it being rolled back in Canada anytime soon. We are rolling out increasingly harsh and stupid feminist inspired laws, encoding feminist ideology into our legal system. And when that's done, it's really hard to roll it back.
Oh yeah.
Australia is down the same road as we are. The encouraging signs in the US that they're willing to start rolling some of these things back is great. I don't know how much they can really accomplish, because feminism, ideological feminism, is backed by serious money right around the world. And that's the thing that disturbs me most about all this. This example you have there is bad enough, but it's advertising. It's not actual criminal law, where this stuff gets really, really serious. When feminist ideology is written into criminal law in countries, and other countries take that law and tweak it a little bit, make it even stronger, and they start to, the feminist activists are getting this stuff encoded in law right around the world, in all the first world countries and second, third world countries as well. This is a major problem, which leads me, I think I was talking to you about this before, is that in many ways I think that feminism is the most dangerous hate group in human history, because it draws upon the subtleties that men absolutely are terrified to attack women, to even be seen to be not protecting and supporting women. So when feminist groups come out with all these lies saying that all this needs to be done to protect women, most men, especially men who are in that sort of mating phase of life, they will not contradict that to save their own lives. And this is what makes the spread of feminism so really easy in many ways, because the men and people who can see through it aren't willing to do anything about it. And I've seen this in friends who have gone through family court and been seriously damaged by family court and have been able to rebuild their lives from it, but they aren't willing to stick their neck out to say, to be public about the injustice that's coming about as a result of all these feminist ideological laws that are in place. They're hunkering down, getting deeper into their businesses, and they won't say a word.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, personally, I do view it kind of in a way more of a symptom of our kind of sexual dimorphism. Would I call it a hate movement? I don't know. I personally try to be very careful about using that kind of vocabulary. I think the vast majority of people who identify as feminists, I genuinely think they think they're doing something good.
Probably, but that's because they don't know what they're actually signed up to. In my mind, there's absolutely no question that feminism is an outright deceitful, deliberately deceitful and lying group intending to create false studies to justify bigoted, hateful laws specifically targeting men. I don't know how we could classify it as anything but a hate group. The fact is, I agree with you, there are a lot of the people who say they're feminists, they don't necessarily hate men, but those people are unimportant. Those are just a big herd of sheep just following along, making sure the money train keeps coming into the smaller group who are the legitimate hate group leaders.
Yeah, I think there are some people, some of them who are a little bit more aware of exactly how manipulative and how insidious their ideology is in terms of how it functions. But I think, I mean, I just there's this video of Cassie J being interviewed by Honey Badger Radio, and it's incredible. She cries. God bless her and her bravery. But she talks, and she has spoken in the past as well, about how as a feminist, she had this worldview, and she just believed it. She just believed that, you know, women had been, you know, systematically oppressed for so many centuries, and this was her worldview, and this was so ingrained into her mind that is, you know, these people that go out and produce these research, I know these people. I was at university with these people, and they have swallowed it. They can't see the world through any other lens, and so they have all this anger, they have all this righteous anger, and they have this outlook, and it makes them do the, make these irrational and illogical conclusions and statements and these non sequiturs and these assumptions about the world. And I think it's because they're just so deeply, I mean, and again, it's an irony, because this whole report is about how people internalize these stereotypes. It's about how children internalize the stereotypes and how these children are brainwashed. It's feminism that does the brainwashing.
Yeah.
That's what the people that are brainwashed. So I think that's the great irony of it, that these people kind of are the most kind of at the mercy of all the brainwashing, and then they think they are justified because they think it's about redressing the balance for them. So all of these unfair things that they do, they think they are redressing the balance. And if you watch Cassie J kind of talk about how it sucker punched her and how difficult it was for her to question this, I think some of them are disingenuous, some of them are genuinely disingenuous and hateful, of course, in every movement. I think there are, but I just think there's something a little bit more complicated going on.
You have to remember that who is actually spoon feeding the lies to these people who are sucking it all in and then getting angry about it. And the group most responsible, of course, are the women's studies professors today. There was other people before, but today there's women's studies professors in every university across the West, and they are spoon feeding known, provable lies into the minds of young and impressionable kids. Unfortunately, at the end of the day, still, each individual is responsible for what they take to be true, unquestioned. And yeah, Cassie J had a big struggle, and I commend her for pursuing the truth to the end, no matter how painful it is. But that really is the job of every person as a human being, as you grow through life.
Something that Paula wanted to talk about, she wasn't able to make it, but something Paula wanted to talk about, who was it? This report that came out, Sargon spoke about it, how Generation X, not Generation X, sorry, Generation Z. Generation Z are just a lot more skeptical.
What is Generation Z? I lose track of all the terminology.
They're the generation who are kind of now like in their sort of teens. They're the generation that comes after the millennials.
After the millennials. What is the millennials exactly now?
So how old would they be? The people that kind of came of age in the millennium.
The turn of the millennium?
So I guess I'm the millennium.
I'm always confused about where these generational things start and end.
But it's this idea that these, as you were saying, everyone's responsible for what they believed to be true or don't believe to be true. So many people that age are questioning it, and it's what's her name? My Name is Josephine, the YouTuber. So she's a Nigerian American female YouTuber, and she's got that wonderful story about how her sister handed in an essay about sort of debunking the wage gap or something, and her professor said, do not use business sources, only use feminist sources. The reality is patriarchy.
Right.
And a lot of people that age are videoing what's happening in their lectures and posting it on the internet. They're arguing with their teachers. These people watch. PewDiePie has 56 million viewers, and PewDiePie is debunking the wage gap.
Great. I mean, these are great things to see and hear, and maybe I'll be proven wrong. To be honest, I hope to be proven wrong, because I'm really pessimistic about the direction our culture is going in for the next 20 years. I agree that long term, this stuff is going to collapse, because basically in the end, everything that's based on a house of cards of lies ultimately does collapse. And
it's just how much damage is going to be done before it does collapse, and how long is that going to take?
Right.
And at the moment in this country, young people have swallowed the whole Jeremy Corbyn, who is now leader of the Labour Party, which is the leftist party, and it's been kind of really overtaken by some hard left politics, and it's very young voters that have bought into this. And it's this idea that every generation has to kind of defeat socialism all over again. And part of me just thinks, do you know what? Make Jeremy Corbyn Prime Minister now. so that he can destroy the economy and we can fix it. The grown-ups can come along all the sooner, because, you know, then it might be my problem to fix it rather than my kids' problem. Because this generation is an economically illiterate. These very young voters, you know, a lot of them are they're being educated now by teachers who themselves are very young and who've been through this modern Western liberal education. They don't understand that. I mean, his manifesto was just would have been a complete economic disaster.
Some of the viewers are commenting on the whole educational system and how it's dominated by feminism, and they make a good point, which I kind of indicated that it begins in university, but it does really begin in kindergarten all the way through life. Feminists dominate the education system from kindergarten through to grad school and beyond. So yeah, I agree with some of the commentators in the comments here that it doesn't really just begin in university.
Oh,
but
not at all. It genuinely does. Yeah. Teachers, I mean, teachers as a profession do certainly in the UK lean.
But some people are pointing out that even their young nephews and whatnot at 11, 12 years old are spouting feminist type ideas.
I think, because remember, every generation likes to rebel, and I think this you know, these young these you know, people that are in their early to mid teens now, I think this is something that a lot of them are rebelling against, and I think many, I don't know if it will be if they'll reach a critical mass, but I think many of them probably will rebel against it. I mean, just for example, you know, the whole Gamergate thing. You know, these are people who, for Anita Sarkeesian at VidCon, yes, she went after Sargon. She also went after Boogie.
Boogie?
Yeah, she went. He's like yeah, he's a video game person, but she was so horrible to him. Like, and he was even a gentleman about how horrible she'd been. And there was a witness, a female witness, who witnessed it and did a video about how rude she and just nasty she was to him, and how upset. And he was just trying to be a gentleman about it. And you know, young people are seeing this. Philip,
I think it's time for these men to stop being gentlemen. Being a gentleman was a contract at one time when there was some reciprocity to it.
Well, that's feminism, right? Feminism is the expectation that men be gentlemen with no expectation that women act like ladies. That's how I like to see it anyway. But I just think, and you know, big people like, you know, again, PewDiePie and also Philip DeFranco, somebody just recently added him to a list of like white supremacists or something. These people have millions of young viewers. You know, this is.
But wasn't PewDiePie also accused of being a white supremacist or a Nazi or something?
He was accused of everything, but you know, these people have, I mean, literally PewDiePie has 56 million followers. They know he's not a Nazi. You know, so I think, I don't know what's going to happen with this new generation that's very, because this generation, I think they understand the internet. They really understand the internet. And I think particularly these people that want to push all of these, you know, women get abused online. Well, you know, the internet isn't a safe place for women, these kind of narratives. You know, they rely on people who don't understand the internet to believe them. And I think we're talking now about the next generation that's coming up. They understand the internet. They're not daft. They're savvy about this kind of stuff, and they can smell, I think, the spin and the bullshit. So I don't know I don't know what the percentages are going to be. And again, this is why they're trying to control the internet a lot more, because they're afraid. They're afraid of these people getting the wrong ideas.
People who are afraid of the truth want to control the spread of information, of course.
Of course they do. And it goes back to this wanting to control advertising content that doesn't feed into the image of what they want the world to look like. It's incredibly narcissistic, really, when you think about it.
Catherine, so I feel obliged to point out to you, because I know you're time sensitive, but I feel obliged to point out to you that we're going on, I think, at 9 o'clock your time. Okay,
maybe I should say goodbye. Yeah,
I'm not trying to cut you off. Seriously, I'm not trying to.
Having me by myself.
I had promised not to keep you on very long before we started, so just keeping my promise there.
And yeah, hopefully nobody will come after me, calling me, I don't know, names or whatever.
You blasphemed already. You can't retract your blasphemy. So you are for sure a potential target for feminist hate now, as anyone.
I hold a far-right extremist, so I'm in good company. I'm in good company there. So yeah. I'm with Dave Rubin, and I'm with PewDiePie, and I'm with Philip.
Steve Burley.
And I'm with Steve. What better company could? I'm with all the other Liberty Bells. So yeah.
And all the Liberty Bells. So many others. People who aren't afraid of the truth.
Wonderful. I will speak to you next week.
Okay, terrific. Thanks for joining us again, Catherine.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.